And how, going back to my question too, what are some of the differences between China and the rest of the Asian region in terms of how business is done and how people are working? Are things a lot similar between the two? Japan, Korea, Southeast Asia, I mean, these are sort of the broad categories. India, another category entirely. How is there anything unique to
Absolutely.
China that you want to point out?
Wow, that's a hard one for me to answer because it's like asking the goldfish what's the water like. It's like, well, it's just, water? What water? I just live in here. So things that are I think the speed of change is really unique here. That China is adapts to new concepts and new technology with what I call China speed. It's just everything is constantly changing here, and there's a willingness to accept and adapt that make China really unique. And that's why, uh, even though it happened by accident, I ended up in China. I ended up starting this company, and so my vision is an Asia-wide brand, and it started in China because I was here. But actually, the benefit is that China is the best environment for a startup because customers are quite willing to adapt to new things, and the competition will copy and fast follow. So you've got to be better. You've got to be continuously innovating, continuously moving ahead. And so it's a boot camp. If you can survive in China, you can survive in the rest of Asia.
Yeah, I think two insights I have to share regarding how China is probably different to the rest of the Asian region is firstly the availability of talent, the amount of technical talent, and the amount of STEM focused science, technology, engineering, and math. Unbelievable talent coming out of China, and a lot of Chinese research and machine learning is just world class. And I think that's something that Westerners and the Western world sort of needs to sort of pay attention to. The other is especially in the prop tech industry, China has these 5-year plans, and when the government commits to making a change and making it a strategic plan or focus, they will get every stakeholder involved, and they'll have the largest companies. And this concept of smart cities, for example, right, is creating prop tech that can't be seen anywhere else. Forget Japan or Korea that have incredible technology too. Just when China does it, they're serious, and companies will make it their strategy because they know the government's all in on this, and even the president can't change the plan once it's set in stone. It's something that people will do, and everyone's going to rally around it and make it happen. And when those waves come, they're like tsunamis. If you can ride those waves when the government's behind it, wow. Change is not like, will it happen, will it not happen? The US is victim to a lot of sort of like dilly-dallying around with things. What I find with China is the conviction is crazy. Like when they say they're going to do something, they do it full force, and they're like 10 years ahead in many areas actually. Blockchain and how IoT works there and how technology works. Do you think the world you're in, running your company, that the Western market will eventually catch up, or is it just too far away?
That's hard for me to answer because, in fact, I haven't lived in the US since I left for England in 93. So you hear my accent, you think I'm American, and I'm like, well, ish. I've now lived more than half my life not in America. It will, I believe in American innovation. I believe that, for better or for worse, the American values of individualism and optimism about I can succeed, I can make a difference, I can do this. The American dream is still quite strong, and so it's still the largest tech companies in the world have come out of the U.S. and the U.S. school systems are the best in the world. That is one weakness that China has. Although they do have an incredibly strong STEM curriculum, they also have weaknesses to their education systems that make innovation difficult. So, but absolutely, I think the reason I'm here is that the 21st century will belong to China the way the 20th century belonged to America.
So, Barbara, prior to Trump, it felt like everyone needs to focus on China. people were sending their children to Chinese schools, and people were picking up Chinese as the second language, and everyone was like, this is where the gold mine is, and this is where the future of collaboration is. We took a step back. We took a radical step back. It certainly didn't help with all the political rhetoric about the origins of coronavirus, and that's for a different type of podcast, right? But it somewhat feels like tensions are at an all-time high, and it's and I experienced this. I'll give you an example, right? We started to see a lot more US activity when it comes to blocking business with China. So CFIUS, which is a government arm that regulates, I think it stands for Center for Foreign Investments or something like that, but they are there to protect the American interests. And they were blocking a lot of acquisitions and a lot of FDI, or foreign direct investment. And we experienced that when I ran my startup. And it felt like, wow, we're really taking a step back. It's a crying shame, really, because this future looks so rosy, this golden handshake almost, where you have the West and the East are finally working together, superpowers. It feels like it's sort of ruptured over the last 5-ish years. Do you experience that from your side where you're sitting? Do you have any views on this?
Well, I'm not gonna comment. I'm not an expert on geopolitics, and I wouldn't comment on it, on the sort of political aspects of it from the standpoint of trade and collaboration. Um, as you can tell from my life, I'm a globalist. I believe that, free travel, free border, free exchange of ideas is ultimately going to be better for everybody. I think that I see it on both sides, that policies here emphasizing domestic production, domestic consumption, and a little bit of, China for China, which, makes sense. And I think is possibly a reaction to maybe that Western view of China as a gold mine. The West saw China as first a producer and then a market. They need to see China as a partner, right? And China is standing up and saying, we create things, we innovate too, we've got things to contribute. We're not just following as a market for the West or a manufacturer for the West. We're going to be an equal economic partner, and I think that's reasonable and just. I hope that in the future that this sort of tensions ease and that there's much more willingness to cooperate and not the isolationism that I see now. But I see this again as a short-term focus that, the US went through isolationist periods in the 20th century, but it still dominated. It was the major force in the world. Britain dominated the world economically, politically, militarily in the 19th century. America did in the 20th century. And I think China is the 21st century. It's just how it's going to be.
And I think, ideally it's a future where, countries lift each other. I think what it takes is we need more Barbaras, right? We need more yous, more people who come from the West, who can, be great role models for other founders, who can see the world is very big, much bigger than, the US or, a country in Europe. And European founders are great because they tend to realize the country's small that they're in, and they have to kind of go global quickly or go, EU wide, right? I also found, I learned a bit of Chinese myself and I committed to it. I've forgotten a lot of it now, but when I went to China and I showed I'm not just a foreigner who's coming in to see it as a gold mine, but really see it as an investment that we want to deliver a good, we want to deliver a product, we want to customize our product. We don't just want to take what works in the West and bring it to China. We're gonna invest in local engineering, local product, local salespeople, a local Chinese-born GM, right? JVs and partnerships. When you do all of this and you also speak the language, suddenly you find the country opens up for you. And you get access at the highest levels because you are committing, and people experience that. And it's very rare because now more than ever, I think, because of the way we've taken a step back, I feel like at this moment in history, it's an opportunity for the next group of Westerners to come out and go to China and partner there. Everyone was, look, more and more people were going to China, and it sort of felt like, okay, you're no longer unique when you're going to China. But I feel like COVID has really caused this, separation for a while. This is great because as the world reopens and companies go back to China for their supply chains and see China as a partner, you can really have a first mover advantage again. I really say that, like a first mover advantage. It feels like that from where I'm standing, at least. I don't know what you see.
Yeah, I think it's just seeing the commitment. I've found people here incredibly kind, incredibly generous, um, open, and I speak Chinese fluently but badly. I speak like I'm an immigrant, which I am, right? And I will never not sound like an immigrant. And people are so generous with me because they know it's not an easy language, and I've taken the effort to really make China my home. And the fact that I'm uh, creating an opportunity for China, for that is, going to add to China's economy, the Chinese development. That's what I'm here for. I think that there are lots of opportunities, but you have to be genuine, right? You can't fake it. You can't just use China instrumentally. And I think that's probably true of any country.
And certain Fortune 500 CEOs have tried to sort of, play to this and try to show, like, oh, look, we're coming here, we speak a few words of Chinese, like that's not enough. Like, you have to show commitment and you have to show it by your actions, not your words. I think the approach that you said about contract negotiation and appreciating that this is a relationship driven world, we have to sort of, I remember my startup, I used to host cultural sensitivity training workshops. For anyone going to any Asian country, we would have an expert come in and explain to them, here's how certain things are, and when we go in and we're very pushy and we want to get straight to the point, that is extremely offensive and rude. And, there's a way things are done, right? And it just takes a lot of going in and not being arrogant, going in and being humble. And when you do that, then the country literally opens for you. And the land of opportunity is one where, it's just bountiful. It's huge. Of course, I mean, look at how many people there are in China. Look at the GDP of the nation and the level of technology and R&D. It's the most exciting opportunity if you can focus on it. It's not one you can do lightheartedly, like you said. You can't just tiptoe. You do have to commit resources to China, otherwise you'll be yet another case study.
Absolutely. I think on the cultural sensitivity side, one of the things I tell people coming here is you cannot assume that the rest of the world is like America or wants to be.
Right.
But many Americans, we have this implicit bias that like America was the shining city on the hill, that everyone wants to be like America. Every culture wants to be more like American business. Not necessarily. China wants to be more like modern China. Equally valid. So don't expect that the world is going to adapt around you. You need to be able to adapt around the world and learn from it. And there are some great things. As I said, the emphasis on relationship. I will never, ever go into a negotiation without knowing who I'm sitting across from and where they come from and who they are and what their reputation is in the industry. And who am I getting into partnership with before we start discussing any terms? Because that's what's going to matter in the long term. I can't imagine ever going back to that, sort of contract focused way of thinking.
Absolutely. Well, look, it's been a pleasure having you on today's PropTech VC podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed the conversation.